Section 2. The Dragon. How can it be the fault of humans that by consequence of their innate desires, they live contrary to the laws of nature? If they see themselves as the wise ones, they can no longer exist in harmony with a perfectly balanced world. This is because they recognize their abilities and their unique intelligence, which allow them to rule and have dominion over other creations that live by instinctual and natural law. Though some groups of indigenous tribes found that this harmony with nature worked well for them, the majority of the wise ones soon assimilated these less intelligent, as they were judged, groups into the expanding sea of civilized humanity. A human infant hasn't a chance of survival in the natural world without something distinguishing it from the rest of the self-equipped and instinctually motivated species of the animal kingdom. It is incapable of defending itself. Unlike other members of the animal kingdom, it has no fight or flight response that lessens the incidence of death as these instinctual protective measures do in other species. This further disproves Darwin's theory of evolution and the concept of survival of the fittest. Humans simply do not properly fit into the balance of nature. An infant has no fur to protect it from the cold, no camouflage to hide it, no pungent smell to ward off predators, and no overwhelming natural strength possessed by its adult protectors to utilize the fight or flight response to their advantage. Modern scientists speculate and hypothesize how the Homo sapiens were able to exist and flourish for thousands of years among ferocious predators. But none of their conclusions make sense or seem logical. Humans, by the weakness of their nature, are an easy source of prey for stronger predatory animals. There are two simple differences that set the human species apart from the rest of the animal kingdom: self-awareness and the ability to reason. This ability is not instinctual and did not come from years of cognitive evolution, as some would suggest. From scientific speculations, a few wise ones formulated the myth of cavemen, whose grunts and groans eventually developed into a communal language of cooperation, which aided the success of the species. If this were the case, science would see the same development in other animal species, but it does not, and will not, because these other species haven't the ability to reason, nor are they aware of the self as an individual part of a greater whole, possessing the ability to exercise free will in order to maintain individuality. This self-awareness and the ability to reason can appropriately be called selfishness. Humans are the only purely selfish creatures in nature. After their basic needs of food and procreative sex are met, their selfishness motivates them to eat for pleasure, have sex for pleasure, and further establish their individuality from the rest of the whole of humanity. Therefore, selfishness becomes a natural human tendency by reason of their own existence. Recognizing selfishness for what it truly is establishes a positive definition instead of the negative connotation generally recognized as improper behavior. The individual is the essence of the wise ones. To find this essence, one must experience a lifetime of choices in which actions contrary to the whole are taken in order to maintain a balance of self-awareness and individuality. Humans divide themselves into family units to develop and maintain individuality. A male and female do not commit to lifelong partnerships to contribute to the whole, but to maintain self-awareness. Love is a value placed on something outside of the self. Being in love is a selfish, abstract human creation. One loves if he or she contributes to the individuality of the one being loved. When there no longer exists a feeling of support for the individual, love no longer exists. A woman, for example, will stay in love with a man as long as she feels the man sees her as his one and only, the most beautiful example of womanhood, or any other emotional support that builds her self-perception that she is uniquely distinguished from other women. Humans may also form partnerships with those of the same sex, with no intent to procreate, but to maintain the essence of their individuality. When a male, for example, senses he is valued by another male, but his individual preference does not fit the accepted norm, the union is emotionally justified because it appears natural and appropriate to both men whose individuality is supported by it. Children are not consciously desired to guarantee the perpetuation of the species, but to give more credibility and support to the individuals who create them. A father and mother validate themselves by their children. Most family rules and expectations are set, not to allow the children to become individuals, but to further the selfish desires of the parents to maintain their own individuality. When a child eventually becomes aware that his or her existence is no longer dependent upon the parent, and that his or her self is more important than the whole of the family, a rebellion ensues. This ultimately brings heartache and instability to the family unit, which was instituted not for the sake of the child, but for the parent. To further maintain the essence for which they exist, humans place values on other abstractions that can more easily establish a state of individuality among them. Material possessions become a distinction of class and prestige. Distinctions of accumulation of knowledge, not intelligence, set one individual apart from another by allowing the opportunity for self-worth to foundationalize individuality. A college degree or employment experience that none other has achieved helps maintain this human essence. The color and style of hair, the jewelry adorning the body, and other personalized choices support the individual against the whole. Self-awareness creates the individual human experience, and the ability to reason maintains it. These unique human characteristics determine the balance by which we acquire a personal awareness of the self. If maintained properly, this balance serves us well and gives meaning and purpose to our existence. Individuality is the value placed upon this existence. When this value is compromised, there is no longer balance. Humans recognize balance and imbalance as happiness and unhappiness, respectively. Like love, happiness and unhappiness are abstract emotions felt when the individual receives or doesn't receive recognition for its uniqueness. When one is not acknowledged separately from the whole, the purpose of existence is breached, and the wise one becomes unbalanced, contrary to its nature. The human either exists in a continual state of unhappiness, or seeks to alleviate the discomfort by setting itself apart from the whole, thus fulfilling the measure of its creation. Since humans seek to fulfill the purpose for which they exist, i.e., to be recognized and valued as individuals, they use their superior intelligence to accomplish this goal. Since the goal is individual and has nothing to do with the whole of humanity, whatever or whoever interferes with reaching this goal becomes a detriment to the happiness, balance of the human being. A serpent has long been viewed as a symbol of wisdom and cunningness, whose power consumes anything or anyone who stands in the way of its desires. The dragon is an abstract serpentine fantasy contrived to exude power and destruction upon any who dare confront it. Though we fear no fantasy, we must be aware of our innate desires, which have become the dragon that threatens our very existence. End of section 2.